Voters are set to head to the polls in Ohio and Indiana tomorrow as primaries get underway for the midterm elections. Let's bring in ABC News contributors Heidi Heitkamp, a former senator from North Dakota, and Barbara Comstock, a former Republican congresswoman from Virginia, for more on this. Barbara, Republicans are hoping to take back control of Congress in the midterms. And President Biden's poll numbers, they're not great, but they are rising. Is that cause for concern? And what do you think Republicans have to do to win back control of Congress?
Well, I think the odds are certainly in the Republicans' favor right now, but who gets nominated is going to make a difference. So when you look at race like the race in Ohio, I do think these candidates have been falling over themselves to say they're more Trumpy than the next. Yet Trump, messed up last night at his rally and didn't even pronounce the name of of J.D. Vance, who he had endorsed correctly. I think he called him J.D. Mandel or J.P. Mandel. So this is going to, if you have bad candidates still matter. I happen to think, J.D. Vance is a pretty awful candidate to have running for Senate, and that could impact whether or not Republicans win, or if you have some of these other extreme candidates in the House who win seats that are more purple seats, that could impact it. But certainly if they can find their way to, nominating normal, mainstream Republicans, conservative but not crazy, I think they're on their way to certainly winning the House and a good chance at the Senate.
So, Heidi, let's take the other side of that. What do you think Democrats need to focus on to keep control of Congress?
Well, they need to focus on talking about what they've already done on infrastructure, making sure that they're sending the message and then drawing the comparisons. Barbara's absolutely right. If you're Republicans, you're feeling pretty good, but you're watching these primaries very closely, because if you nominate someone that is way too extreme, there is a lot of opportunity for Democrats to exploit that. Biden famously said, "Don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative." There is a primary race in the Democratic side that's of interest to people like me. Martha Fudge's old district is the more moderate Democrat won there in the special election. We see a primary again. I think that's another bellwether for hearts and minds on what Democratic voters are going to be looking for. Maybe somebody more moderate with, as they see it, practical solutions, or an innovative, idealistic candidate. And so we'll wait and see what happens. But, right now, the Senate primary in Ohio is full of people who have, I think, some looming problems when they get to the general election. They have run, as Barbara said, way too closely with the past president.
Now, these primaries are also a key test for former President Trump and his influence over the Republican Party. Barbara, you talked about how important these primaries are. What is at stake for former President Trump, for the MAGA movement in general, and for the Republican Party in general?
Well, first of all, I'll point out that Donald Trump is probably on his way to losing his preferred candidate in a lot of the governor's races. Governor Kemp is ahead by double digits and certainly is going to win that primary. I think you're going to see there's 4 governors that he's opposed that are incumbent governors, all who are going to win their primaries because he's picked weak candidates and it's just been a campaign of revenge. I think he focused on this J.D. Vance nomination because he knows these others are failing. So I think whatever happens tomorrow in Ohio, the press should not give it outsized influence, because Trump, Mo Brooks already collapsed into 3rd place, and so Trump abandoned him because he was an embarrassment. There are other candidates, like the Pennsylvania Senate, the candidate he first endorsed had to drop out. So Donald Trump already has a bad record on who he's picked. So even if J.D. Vance gets through tomorrow, and I think if you look at some of the campaign specifics, it looks like Josh Mandel might have run a more grassroots campaign. I'm hoping certainly that Matt Dolan, who's the one who's not been being a Trump suck-up, that he somehow can come up the middle and prevail. But I think this may be getting more talk than it should, because Trump is failing in a lot of state and local races where he decided to play just based on revenge, and the good, sane Republicans are going to prevail. Like in DeWine, Governor DeWine was opposed by Trump. He is going to win soundly tomorrow in the primary.
Now, Heidi, that said, Trump did win both Indiana and Ohio by a fairly wide margin in 2020. So how vulnerable are Democrats there, and what do they need to do to move the needle in their direction?
Well, I think they need to nominate Tim Ryan, who clearly has been a pro-blue-collar worker congressman and politician since day one. He has a solid record opposing trade agreements, has a pretty good grassroots organization in rural America. I think that this is the frosting on the cake for the Democrats. If we can, in fact, take Ohio with someone like Tim Ryan, that will be, I think, a bellwether and perhaps a harbinger of things to come in 2024. So expect a very aggressive race. I think it's a tough environment for Democrats, especially with president's approval rating where it's at. But Tim Ryan, if there's a candidate who models the old Ohio pro-working class model, it is Tim Ryan. And I think it will draw some very interesting contrasts.
Now, Barbara, what do you think they need to do to keep this going?
But for Republicans, well, listening to Donald Trump and talking about the past is a recipe for failure, I would argue. It might get you a primary nomination, but it'll put you more in danger in the general election. And we've certainly seen, and we had candidates like, was in the past who lost in really good years. When we had Todd Akin running against Claire McCaskill in Missouri, that should have been a Republican seat in a Republican year, and Republicans lost because they nominated an extreme candidate. So I know in the Senate, Mitch McConnell and Senate leadership is very mindful of this. In the House, not so much so, although, there are a lot of outside groups that are trying to make sure we don't nominate, the crazy element. And I in fact, am involved with a group that's opposing Marjorie Greene. Please, anyone who'd like to oppose her in her primary, we got a good Republican woman right there.
All right, Heidi Heitkamp, Barbara Comstock, thank you both.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.